Welcome to the Recovery Lab podcast. We're glad you were able to join us. Recovery Lab hopes to destigmatize addiction and normalize recovery.
Our platform provides an avenue to share the many stories of those that have recovered from addiction, providing for the listener the most basic antidote to addiction.
Hope. Welcome back. This is the Recovery Lab podcast series. I'm Drew Hassan.
I'm Daniel Anderson.
I kind of got lost listening to the music and kind of missed my beat, but it works out because it gives you a minute to get back over here.
Yeah, it worked out well.
All right, this is episode number 62.
62 of the Recovery Lab podcast series.
We're welcomed by none other than E.C. Simmons. Do you want us to call you E.C. or Elizabeth Clark the whole thing?
E.C.
E.C.
What was that?
Is that your phone?
She's got two phones.
I got a work phone. He's like, why the heck do you have two phones? I got a work
Goes
phone.
back to our
She and Kevin Gates both.
our pre-conversations.
Oh, no, I have a work phone.
Of course you do. Well, welcome.
So I got a burner phone.
He's actively trafficking drugs.
Getting that money.
All right. Everybody,
We really do have to be mindful, though, because her grandmother does have my telephone number.
Well, welcome. All right, let's.
I know everybody out there is maybe wondering why I said her grandmother has my phone number, but so EC is my sister-in-law.
There we are.
Favorite sister-in-law.
Favorite sister-in-law. You really are. Yeah. Well, look, I'm glad you decided to do this. It's been a long time in the making.
Yes, I'm excited to be here.
All right. The general format is kind of like an AA speaker meeting with questions.
A 12-step speaker.
Yeah. So why don't you just start talking about how you're qualified to be here, and then we'll throw in interesting questions to elicit interesting responses.
Okay. Well, I am in recovery. Thank God, I have a little over 6.5 years sober. Lord willing, in April of next year will be my 7th year sober.
April what?
April the 3rd.
I'm April 11th.
My sister's birthday.
Oh, wow.
I was there. I saw you on April 3rd.
That was fun, wasn't it?
Oh, boy.
She was lit.
Popping Xanax on the way to
That a girl.
rehab.
Proud of you.
She was in there. She was in there.
That's awesome.
I was like, I can remember too. Like these aren't working. Like,
Right.
I don't feel like this has done anything. My anxiety's so terrible. Ooh, looking back now, I was toe up.
She was.
Yeah, they work until they stop working.
Yeah.
So go on. April 3rd, you got sober.
April
April 3rd, you'll have 7 years.
Yes.
Lord willing. Okay.
Absolutely. So my sister actually, she's in recovery as well too. And my brother-in-law. My sister actually, I didn't realize that the whole time. Well, I guess I can just kind of start talking about whatever, right?
Floor's yours.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We're not regulated by the
World
FCC.
is your oyster.
My sister's been on here before, and she's talked about it. She's also in recovery. But growing up, it was kind of like my sister's addiction was more obvious than mine.
Mm-hmm.
She ended up, her addiction took her to using the needle and, heroin and all that, where I think, thankfully, it scared me to the point that I would never do that. Not saying that my addiction wouldn't have taken me there, but it kind of just steered me away.
Right.
And the whole time our family was always focused on my sister because, obviously she's the one that was more apparent that she had a problem where I just drank and
she's the older sister?
she's 4 years older than I am.
Okay.
So
you got to kind of fly under the radar a little bit with your addiction.
yes.
Did that cause problems, though, that she got all this attention and you didn't, even though it was, negative attention? Were you ever, kind of jealous that she was getting all this, all this attention, and here you were also struggling, but nobody really cared, or was it like that at all?
Well, that's good. That's a good question.
I will say that did struggle for a while because it's always kind of been about my sister.
Yeah.
You know, she's more of, she likes to be in the spotlight. She's, even till this day, she's the one who likes to be in the spotlight, where I'm the kind of one that likes to be in the background. There's certain times that I like to be in the spotlight, but at the same
I wouldn't describe you as like a wallflower.
No, not at all. But I'm just saying, like, if Kimberly and I are in the room, like, you're going to know Kimberly's there before you know I'm there. Wouldn't you say that?
Kimberly, put your earphones
This
on.
is your episode. I'm going to let you say what you need to say.
I'm waiting for your phone to ring from Kimberly right now.
This is a minefield right here, isn't it?
No, but, well, going back, anyway, I like people to know that I'm here. Like, watch out, I'm here. But at the same time, growing up, yes, it was when Kimberly was in the spotlight, we were always focusing on her, you know, sending her to treatment and stuff, where I was kind of always just drinking and having fun.
Right.
But I wouldn't say, as far as, did it negatively affect me? No, it is what it is.
So there was no, like...
Do you think it lets you get away with more? Because I know you, so
Yeah.
you were mainly a drinker,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, I know you took some pills too, but you weren't out there doing coke and heroin. Meth.
Freebasing meth.
Yeah. So
No,
it
it's
kind of
not
it provides some cover for you. You get to have the more socially acceptable
Right, yeah.
addiction.
And I functioned for a really, really long time. You know, I went to Mississippi State. After I graduated, I went to State. I stayed there for 2.5 years, 3 years. And then my grandfather got a brain tumor, so I moved home for a semester. I transferred colleges because I wanted to be closer to home. So I transferred to MC. I stayed there for a while.
I didn't even know that. You went to MC, huh?
For a semester, yeah.
Were you in one of those tribes?
No,
Okay.
I was not in a tribe.
MC, they don't have
They don't
sororities.
have sororities, they have tribes.
They have tribes.
They're extra like that. I
Yeah.
see. Okay.
So I went to MC, and then I took a semester off, which that was the worst thing ever, because once you take a semester off, you're not going back.
Yeah, you lose that forward momentum.
Yeah,
A lot of
which, I
times.
mean, I was not doing, I mean, I was a C student, but I wasn't, like, on a roll or anything like that. But so I never went back. And then 2013, my first grandfather passed away, and that was kind of, you know, that kind of took a negative effect on me, and I would say that I started drinking more. And then in 2015, I was in a terrible relationship, found out that my other grandfather was not doing well, so I was living outside of Hattiesburg, going back and forth a whole lot from Jackson, because I've always been somebody that likes to care for people. So I wanted to be there for my grandfather.
To a fault sometimes, or no?
I think it's just more like in my nature. I helped take care of my dad when he was sick growing up, and so I think for me it just comes naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So then my second grandfather got sick. The day that my grandfather passed away, my ex's mother told me that she had moved my stuff out of the house and it was in storage. And so that was kind of like two big things that just hit me in the face. And so I that's like the beginning to my downward spiral. I ended up moving back to Jackson, moving in with my grandmother, with Mimi. Did you know I lived with Mimi?
I know y'all had kind of a revolving door.
Yeah.
Like if you ride around Jackson with Kimberly, she's like, oh, EC and I lived there for a little while. And EC lived there, and I lived there for a little while. Oh,
Kimberly and I tried to live together a whole lot, especially when her boys were little. And, look, that was terrible. I'd have to, look, Kimberly's probably going to be like, don't say that. I can remember literally having a safe in the trunk of my car and putting my Adderall in it. Somehow she would find it and break my safe open and get it out.
I believe it.
I mean, yeah. But
Depends on what milligram. I mean, 30 milligrams.
got 90 of those things a month.
Oh, my God.
I was rolling. But yeah, Kimberly and I did try to live with each other. It always ended up not being well, you know, like a couple of times she would go back to treatment and then I'd be stuck with bills and stuff like that. So that wasn't good. But yeah, I lived with Mimi after Grand died, 2015. She let me stay there until I could get on my feet, which I never got on my feet, but yeah. She ended up moving to Atlanta. And when she moved, I moved into an apartment. But 2015, like October-ish of 2015 till the time I went to treatment, April 2017, really was like a big blur. Like I didn't have a job. I couldn't hold down a job. So I was just waitressing, which that's an easy thing to do, especially if you're drinking, because, you know, they don't give a damn if you show up for work,
right?
You know, like they don't care. So I was doing that, and it was that, I would say, probably somewhere in 2016, it became, I didn't have any control over alcohol. It was completely consuming my life. Before then, I was always a 5 o'clock drinker. Go to work, and then at 5 o'clock, I could start drinking, and then I would drink till I passed out. But obviously over the years, it got to be more and more. But in 2000, go back a little bit. So 2015, that Christmas, I was working at the time, and I was working in an office, and then I started having this, like, that morning, I started having this, like, weird, like, allergic reaction, like, started breaking out in hives, and then, like, my throat started getting scratchy, and, like, my eyes started swelling shut, and I was like, what the heck? So ended up having to go to the emergency room, and they pumped me full of a bunch of Benadryl and stuff, and it was fine. And then I started having these, like, weird reactions, like, over and over again. And my grandmother, that's when I was living with her, she was like, we got to figure out what's going on. So she spent God knows how much sending me to an allergist. They did all these tests, and they basically said that they called it idiopathic something. Basically, it was a fancy word for hives for no apparent reason.
Yeah, that's what idiopathic means.
Yeah.
But we don't know why.
Yeah. And so basically I was just getting all these hives, but it got to the point where I was becoming anaphylaxis. So I had an EpiPen, and when I would have one of these things, I would have to jab myself through. It wasn't fake.
Y'all's physical ailments know no bound.
Yeah. So, but no, it was bad. I mean,
yes, of course. Andy.
Yeah.
I should, of course.
So, but looking back on all this time, when I was going to all these doctors and I was having all these he's over there just thinking. So when I was having all of these reactions, the weird thing is when I checked myself into treatment, I had to have all these things. I also had to take like a bunch of, it was like allergy pills, and I was on steroids. I looked like a blown up whale. Like,
you were swole up for sure.
It was bad. Like you could stick a pin in me and I would have deflated and blown away. But it was bad. And then, when I went to the Home of Grace, because that's where I went, they were like, you can't take any, like, you can take certain medicines, but not all of them. So
you need the Holy Spirit.
Yes. So,
is this a faith-based?
Mm-hmm, same place that Kimberly went. So when I got there and I got sober, all of a sudden these allergic reactions stopped happening. And then I look back, and the only thing, obviously, that I never told the doctor was the amount of alcohol I was taking in. Oh. So my body was literally it was trying to fight off the amount of alcohol that I was putting in my body. Before I checked myself into treatment, I was drinking a half a gallon of vodka a day.
That a girl.
Yeah. Pinnacle. Only way to go. At one point, I started out, I was like, Kettle One and all that, and then shoot, that got
Here comes the Belvedere.
$50 for
Mad Dog.
Yeah. So I switched to Pinnacle, $20 we could do that. And it's weird because I was telling Kimberly the other day, we were talking about it, and I was like, I can literally remember there was times where I would be like counting up change, like I'd spend all my money, like thankfully like I'd paid my bills and stuff, but then I would be like, oh crap, I need to go get some more vodka. And and there was probably like, I was so drunk, there's probably like money in my purse or something, but I was
Right.
counting quarters, just that craziness that happens. But another thing is kind of how I got to treatment. It was a God thing because, like I said, Kimberly, my sister, the Home of Grace was her 13th treatment. I'd never been, of course, Kimberly she used to always say, well, you drink, like she tells a story about one time I'd been up like all night on like a binger, like eating Adderall and drinking, and me and one of my friends came and picked her up to take her to an appointment from Harbor House. We were like high as a kite, we'd been up drinking all night, taking Adderall. It was a good time. But in my opinion, I justified it, it was just alcohol, whatever. I had
A doctor prescribed
a
it.
doctor
Right.
prescribed
it can't
it
be
to
wrong
us.
if it's
Yeah.
prescribed.
So,
I can't not take it.
Right.
Yeah,
That would be going against medical advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got to take
I am not
this.
one to go against medical advice.
Right? You got to take them all. Go
You gotta
big
do
or
what you
go
gotta
home.
do. Absolutely.
And so when Kimberly went to the Home of Grace, there was a lot of, I will say that towards the end of it, there was a lot of anger that I had towards my sister just because I had seen the hurt that she had caused in our family. Not saying that I didn't do terrible things too, but there had just been this, I had a lot of not hate, but anger towards my sister. And so when she first started.
And can you identify exactly why you hated her? I know you touched on it briefly, but what's at the base of that?
Hate's a strong word, though. I
Yeah,
don't hate anybody.
Yeah,
anger.
of course.
I think probably for Kimberly, because it was like I saw this endless cycle of getting sober, doing well for a while, and then boom, she just couldn't get it. She just couldn't stay sober. Something always happened, I would be the first person. Look, you are not getting high, like you are going to stay sober, you have kids, blah, 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 whatever. I was very, like, I had a reason to judge her, but, whatever. I was like, this is what you're going to do. I guess for me, it was more just like, why can't you get this? Like, why can't you just stay sober? And I never knew. Of course, I never knew because I'd never been in her shoes. And I never.
So how exactly did her actions affect you?
I think for me, it was a way for me just to hide. If she was in the spotlight, I could hide what I was dealing with.
Right, and the fact that she wasn't in the spotlight was the source of the anger, or
no, just saying like that vicious cycle of
okay,
take
so
her to rehab.
She can do all this, and
yes,
and then she's praised with attention and love, and you do it one time, and you're not praised with attention.
Oh
and
no,
love?
no.
Like,
well, I hadn't been there. I hadn't been at this point. I hadn't like I'm saying when Kimberly checked herself into treatment.
Right.
She.
I'm just trying to identify.
I think it's more of the more we can focus on Kimberly's misdeeds,
the less we focus
the less
on
there
me.
is,
Yeah.
the less of the finite attention to be focused on me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a theme here. A lot of your story has a lot to do with Kimberly.
Yeah. Well, she's eventually the reason I got sober.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing I was going to say is, when she was in treatment, she would call and I would, you don't, if you've ever been in treatment, you don't usually get to call till at night. Well, look, I was heavy in the vodka by the time she would call at 7:00 at night or whatever. And I can remember, that was in January of 2017, on New Year's Day of 2017, I was working. I was a waitress, and I had a full-blown seizure at work. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of along with those allergic
DT?
reactions. Yes.
Okay.
So they took me to the hospital. Of course, everything was fine. And then, I was detoxing from alcohol and Xanax. Those are the two things that can kill you.
Right.
And
Xanax is no joke. Alcohol is no joke.
Yeah. And I can remember actually when my doctor put me on Xanax. So a couple of years later, I was like, I don't want to be on this anymore. I don't like it. And he was like, well, we can't just take you off of it. You can't just cold turkey. And I'm like, okay. But so Kimberly would call me in a couple of nights, I would answer. And I can remember one night for 3 days prior to talking to her, I could remember I was so depressed that I said for 3 days straight, all I'm going to do is get up today and take a shower. And I would sit on the end of my bed and I'd be like, there's the bathroom. And I was so depressed, I'd be like, screw it. I'm just going to start drinking. And so I'd just start drinking again. And it was absolutely miserable. And I can remember Kimberly calling me, and she was like, look, like, you need this Home of Grace place. Like, it's really great. I really wish that you would consider coming here. You know, like, you can get sober, you can be happy. Like, and I could hear in my sister's voice that there was something different than all the other times. It was like she was faking it, you know, or not faking it, but
not committed 100%.
yes, there was something different this time. And so she was like, I really wish you would come. And looking back now, I know it was God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I didn't know this until later, but every single time that they would have a chapel or whatever at the Home of Grace, Kimberly would go to the front and ask for prayer for me. And everybody was praying for me. I don't want to get emotional, but everybody was praying for me to get help, because, you know, like, she knew more than anybody the depths of what I was going through, because she had seen it. Like, yeah, but just because I wasn't.
Time and time again.
Yeah, you know, and for me, thinking back, you know, on the amount of alcohol I was drinking, and then the amount of Xanax I was, you know, I mean, I had a prescription for the maximum amount of bars you can get. I don't even know what it was, but I was taking 4 or 5 bars a day.
Right.
And, like, it was a vicious cycle. I knew how much I could take while I was drinking to get, like, super effed up and then just to black out. And then, but I also knew how much not to take, because one time I took too many and I ended up in the hospital with my stomach being pumped. And then on top of that, like, I knew the next day, like, I had to take a half of a bar just to keep from getting a hangover. And then I would know, you know, that was probably like as soon as I woke up, and then later I'd have to take another half. And then, you know, my anxiety, of course, the longer without alcohol I would get during the day, the more I was having to take from keeping, you know, from feeling like absolute shit. And so it was just this vicious cycle. And I think more than anybody, you know, Kimberly, she saw that, and she was like, all right, like, you know, we're going to pray, we're going to get through it. And so, yes, Kimberly is a big part of it, because she led me to recovery. Mm-hmm. You know, and like I said, I heard something different in her voice. And so we couldn't be on the program at the same time. And so Kimberly graduated on her birthday, which was April 3rd, and that's the day I checked myself in. But I mean, as far as the amount of alcohol, looking back and seeing what all I did, and, you know, one of the counselors at the Home of Grace said once, like, if you ever think about going back to drinking, just remember how miserable you were before you got sober. And I literally can just picture myself sitting on that bed, so depressed and so miserable. And like I said, all I wanted to do was take a shower, and I couldn't even do that because alcohol had such a control on me. And I was just like, well, screw it. You know, this is it. I honestly think that if God hadn't stepped in and, you know, said, look, you're doing this, then I would be dead by now.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I would have been dead. You know, it would have been a seizure, or, you know, the amount of alcohol I was put in my body. I mean, dang, it was only so long before my body started shutting down.
Right.
You know, thankfully I never had any. I remember jokingly I went to a 2-year checkup. I was 2 years sober, and my doctor was like, congratulations, your liver survived.
Right.
You know, and it's amazing. It's a miracle that I don't have any kind of side effects. You know, I mean, I think all of us are a miracle in right. a lot of ways, you know. I mean, we should be dead or have some kind of
yeah.
You know, severe issues.
Tick.
Yeah. I was thinking about something else. Severe.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So you've gone to treatment and life is looking better. What happens then?
So when I got out of treatment, I was like, well, like, what the heck am I going to do?
What the heck am I going to do
yeah.
now? So when was it? This was 3 months
17?
After April?
I graduated in June
okay.
of 2017. And so I was like, well, I don't know. So I went to the grad dorm. Kimberly was living at the grad dorm still. I moved over. I was like, stay longer so you can figure out what you want to do. I had no idea. I didn't have a house to go back to because when I moved or when I went to treatment, I was living in Rusty's old house. Like my mom's
in Jackson?
Yeah. And so
in Northeast Jackson?
Around the corner from Mimi and Dad's.
Okay.
And so they had, I couldn't go back there. I could, like my mom had moved all my stuff out of there when they moved the rest of the people out. And roommate situation when I was there, that was a whole different level of chaos before I was in treatment. I lived with some, how like when you're in your addiction and you just find all these random people to hang out with.
You're just like, I'm trying to find somewhere to sleep.
You're just like, yeah, like you can live with me. Like it was something else. But so I stayed at the grad dorm for a couple months, and then my dumbass decided to start back talking to my ex, the one that had moved my stuff out, like when my grandfather died. Mm-hmm. So I started talking back to him, and then of course from then on it was like, this is my way out, like this is my saving grace, like a place to live, all this kind of stuff. So I actually ended up moving to an Oxford house first in Hattiesburg, where I ran into you that time at an AA meeting. So I was there for about a month, and then just trying to get on my feet. And then he was like, well, why don't you just move back in with me? Okay, like, great. So ended up moving outside of Hattiesburg again. And about 2 months after I moved back, well, I don't even know if it was that long. So I was 6 months sober when I moved back in with him. And one day we were out doing something, and I picked up the console of his truck, and there was just empty airplane bottles everywhere. And I was like, okay, great. So
airplane bottles?
Of vodka.
Oh, got it.
Or not vodka, of whiskey. And I was like, great. I'm living in a house with a full-blown alcoholic who's hiding it from me, and here I am trying to stay sober. So I was like, what am I going to do? So the whole time, of course, I learned at treatment, stay plugged in. I'd found a recovery group at church. I was going there every Sunday. It was, the more I went to church, the worse it got at home. It was like, I'm going to stop you from going if I can, like anything and everything. It was almost like, because he was sick, he didn't want me to get better. And he would say things to me like, well, I can drink. I'm the one that doesn't have the problem, stuff like that. Well, and I, of course, I'm kind of a smart ass. I would be like, well, if you didn't have a problem, then why are you hiding it? But I just remember this.
Valid point.
Yeah, and I would just be like, he would always kind of look down on me and I'd be like, well, I'm the one that's sober, I don't have to drink today. And so I just continued to do what I knew that I needed to do to stay sober. I had lots of people that were praying for me. I had lots of connections back at the Home of Grace, and I knew what was going on. And then I'd asked my mom at one point, like, can I just move back in with you for a little while until I can figure something out? And she was like, no, you can't come here. And I was like, all right, great. And that's because, unfortunately, at that time, my mom was in a bad relationship, and he controlled what she did. So she couldn't let me come home. And so I was just like, all right, I'm just going to stick it out. So I actually went to give my testimony. Kimberly and I both went to give our testimony at a place in Philadelphia, Mississippi. And when we were up there talking, I was like, on my way home, it just hit me. And I was like, I've got to get out of this. Like, my thing is, if I don't leave, it's only a matter of time before I start drinking again. And then there goes everything. So on the way back, I called my sister and I let her know. And then I called Barry Walker, who runs the river in Philadelphia. And I was talking to him and I was like, I've got to get out of this. Like, I need y'all's help. So we just started praying. And every time I would save up some money, it was like something would happen. I mean, of course, I'm very much of a control freak, and more so in my sobriety. I think for me, that's the one thing I can hold on to a lot of times. So I like to control everything that I can. And so every time I would try to save up some money or do anything, it was like something would happen and I would have to use it or whatever. And so finally, I had no plan, like none whatsoever. And then finally, one day, kind of a sad story, but my ex, like, we lived in his house, like, like I moved there, like I didn't have a vehicle at the time because I think mine like blew up before I went to treatment. And so my car was his, and then his family owned a restaurant, and that's where I worked. So like everything about me was focused around this relationship. So if I left, I had nothing. And so one weekend he looked at me and he was like, I'm going fishing this weekend with my dad, and like you're staying here, like, but the vehicle that I had was not working and he hadn't taken it to the shop yet. And so he was literally going to leave me home all weekend long without a vehicle or any way to go. The crap I got myself into. But I just looked at him and I said, I'm leaving you. And he just said, what did you say? And I said, I'm leaving you. And I'll never forget his word. He said, who cares about you enough to come pick you up? And I knew more than anything that my family did not approve of him. Like Mimi didn't like him, Clark and Larry, my mom, nobody liked him. I knew the one person that he couldn't stand more than anything, like they did not get along, was Clark. So I just looked at him. I said, well, Clark's coming to pick me up. Clark didn't come pick me up. Mm-hmm. But it was a jab. So my sister actually drove the next day. We got everything that I could fit in her car. It was me and my dog and all my stuff. I had a friend from church that I'd met that had become a really good friend. She happened to have an extra bedroom in a house that her son lived in that I could store my stuff. She said, you can store it for however long you need. So I did that, and it was just like the next literally 12 hours, everything was so seamless. It was nothing but God.
Right. Everything
lined up, and it was like this whole time I was trying to make my own plan, and God was just saying, let me do it.
Right.
And so I went to Mobile, and then when I went to Mobile, it was I lived with Kimberly I stayed with Kimberly for a couple of weeks, and then got a connection through somebody at the Home of Grace. They were like, look, you need to call this woman. Her name is Tasha Ridley. She just started running a women's sober living home. It's faith-based. It's great. It's in Sims. So I was like, okay. So I text Tasha, and I was like, hey, I got your number. And she was like, all right, like, great. Like, you can come. When can you come? And I was like, well, I guess I can come Monday or whatever. And she was like, can you come today? I can come get you. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not ready to go today. So I think I went on Monday. Kimberly dropped me off. And so that was in September of 2008? So 2018. So 2018 I went there and ended up staying there until I moved to Ocean Springs in 2022. So I moved to Pasco, which they have a men and a women's program, but it's
they have men?
Mm-hmm, yeah. So Philip that owns Pasco, he and Rocky run the men's side of it, and then Tasha, she runs the women's. And before I got there, before Tasha took over, Philip had one trial run at women's, and it didn't work out. They couldn't find somebody that was sober to stay in the position to run it and everything like that. But so I lived in Mobile. Literally 2 weeks after I got there, I met a lady at church. She asked for my resume because we were just talking. I had like a 2-week temp job, and then they called me. There's this job. We want you to start on a Saturday. I was like, who the hell works on Saturday? Who starts on Saturday? That's when Hurricane Michael had hit. So I went to work for an insurance adjusting firm, and I was in the billing department because I had that from working for a law firm for 9 years. As my experience. So I ended up working there and then staying there, and then that's where my career is now. That was it was all God that added up to that, because I'm still in the insurance adjusting field, but I've moved up and I've made a way for myself, and now I'm a claims manager. Not for the same firm, because that one is no longer there. The owners of my old one took me to a new company. So that everything about I mean, I just say it's a God thing because he's the number one thing in my story. I mean, there's no other way you can explain anything about where I've been, what I've been through, anything without just saying like, wow, like God did that.
Right. Yeah. It's super easy to, when you lift your arms up and just kind of say, all right, God, I am smart enough to know that I am not smart enough to know what's best for me right now.
Right.
And I trust you.
Mm-hmm.
Then he comes in and grabs your hand and says, all right, let's do this. I've seen it time and time again. It happened in my life. It happened in millions of other people's lives. So I'm very, very happy that everything worked out for you. And again, it's a testament to, just kind of getting to a point where you're broken just enough to trust God that he's got your best interest at heart, and he's going to take care of you no matter what. It
Absolutely.
may not look like what you think it's going to look like or how, you think it's going to work out, but ultimately it always works best if you just trust him. And that's all he's asking. Just trust me. Just trust me.
And I think a couple of times he really had to like knock me on my feet, be like, this is like, it's not going to, your way doesn't work. So watch me. And then
I don't think that he knocks you on your feet. I think that he allows things.
Yes. Well, he allows you, like, he allows you to get to a place where it's like, he can't, like, all right, like, you're going to fall.
Yeah.
Because you're not asking me for help, and then I'm going to pick you up.
Right.
So, yeah. And then, so while I was at this sober living home, I was like the face of Pasco, going to churches, giving my testimony, all this kind of good stuff. And then I found out I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't tell anybody. Like, I told Kimberly, and actually, Drew and Kim.
I was there when you found out.
I took the pregnancy test, and I made Drew go downstairs and read it. And it was like I was like bad late for my period. And so like Kimberly and I were in the bathroom, we gave it to Drew, and he ran downstairs, and he was like, all right. I'll never forget what he said. Do you remember what you said?
I have no idea.
He said, congratulations, Mama. I'll never
Well said.
So, and then I was like, oh shit, like here we are. And I'm living in a sober living home. It's faith-based. Like, we're not even supposed to be dating. Like, here I am pregnant. And so I hid it for a long time. For Kimberly and Drew were the only ones that knew for a while. And then I tried to hide it for a long time. And then I finally told my mom. And I remember, like, I told my mom, she was like, we were like driving somewhere. I was in Ocean Springs that weekend. I was telling her, I was like, we had been at the pool or something, and I said something, and I can't remember what it was, but we kind of got into a heated argument or whatever. I said, Mom, I just need you to shut up or something. She was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I'm pregnant. And she looked at me and she said, what are you going to do?
Oh, jeez.
Like, and I was like, the only thing I said was, I don't know, Mom, but I know that God has this under control. And for me, that was the first time that I got to choose, like, I have no idea how to do this. Like, this is obviously above my thing, but I know that
Above my pay grade.
Yeah, but I know that at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that God is still good, and He's gonna provide, and He's gonna do everything. So I was still living in the sober living home, and I had to finally Tasha prayed about it for 7 days, and she sat down in her chair in her office, and God said, EC's pregnant, and she said, no, she's not. And literally that's what happened. And so I was in her office, and she said, are you pregnant? And I just lost it. I was already 12 weeks at that point. I already knew what I was having. I already knew I was having a little boy when she found out. And so she was like, all right, well, we got to talk to Philip. We got to see what he says. Of course, with my upbringing, and it's nothing against my family. It's just the way that the society and everything, you're raised in Northeast Jackson, it's, if you do something wrong, you're shunned,
Right.
And so for me, my biggest fear was, all right, like, I'm living in this sober living home that's based on, Jesus and everything. I'm going to get kicked out. So that's what I thought. And then I found out that Philip was like, I'm not going to, like, why would I kick you out? Like, come to find out, he was like, he actually looked at me and he was like, I knew we wanted to start a women's and children's home. I just didn't know it was for you. So literally 30 days after they found out that I was pregnant, I kicked Philip and Rocky out of their house. They ran the program, and they made it into a sober living home, like a women's and children's home, so that when I had Blake, we had a home to go to. When I say God provided everything and then some, I did not have to buy one single thing the whole time I was pregnant. All of the people that come there and pour their love out, they were nothing but supportive. They threw me baby showers, they gave me stuff. People would just come by, would be friends with somebody, and they would find out that I was having a little boy, and, hey, I know somebody that's having a little boy, if you have any extra clothes. Literally, before I had Blake, I had,
I went over there it literally looked like Babies R Us in there.
I mean, I had everything.
Joke. It was crazy.
I still have clothes. I think I just opened up the last box, when Blake started wearing 4T. And they were all brand new stuff that people had just bought and donated, God literally provided in every way possible. And even up to, most of the time when you go to have a baby, it's not really that cheap in a hospital. I had to pay $150 my whole pregnancy out of pocket for everything. So I just trusted God, and I just let him do it. And then, so we stayed at Pasco, and I finally, for the first time in my life, I'd always tried to be in control. I'm going to do it my way. I want my plan to work. God, here's my plan. You just bless it.
Right.
Let me get everything together, and then you just say, okay, here you go. That's great. For the first time, I was I don't have any control. So I just had to say, all right, God, whenever you tell me I can leave, I can leave. So I ended up having Blake, stayed with my mom for 6 months. Unintentionally, it was only going to be for 8 weeks, but then once again, God said no. I had an open wound for 6 months after my C-section, because I know that after 8 weeks, I wouldn't have been ready to go back by myself and live, with this newborn child. So we lived with my mom for 6 months, and then I went back to Mobile. And then later, a year later, I finally just asked my company, I was like, can we just make it was COVID anyway. I was like, can we just make my position full-time remote, because I want to move? And so they were like, okay. So then I moved to Ocean Springs, and then the position I'm in now will always be remote, but the one I had then was not. And so we moved to Ocean Springs, and now I have a 3.5-year-old, and I have 100% success rate at keeping the tiny human alive. So
Yeah,
that is an impressive
right.
string of days you stacked up.
You can't argue with those statistics.
I know, right? 100%.
Yeah.
You're going to use that, aren't you?
No, look,
60% of the
Kimberly and I
time
were talking
it
about that the other night.
every
We're like,
time.
we've kept him alive.
Right?
Right.
Heck yeah.
Some days it'd be like that.
DHS has been at our house 0 times.
Right? Absolutely.
0 times.
Yeah.
I love it.
Gosh.
It's hard sometimes. Kids, whatever.
I'm telling you, it was like World War III at Kimberly and Drew's house when I was leaving.
I bet it was.
Thomas and Blake.
Her son is 5 weeks younger than Thomas.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of my favorite pictures is behind Kimberly and EC walking down the hall, going to see their and they're both large and in charge. And we may post it on the website. I'm kidding. Arms swinging, belly's big,
I don't know if I've seen that.
Oh, it's good.
Is it?
Y'all are storming. Tummy out to right here.
Yeah.
It's good.
Look, I didn't even tell my grandmother I was pregnant until I was 7 months pregnant.
Really?
Yeah. That was, I hit it. I guess for
That
me.
FaceTime was FaceTime was tight.
No, actually, when I was 6 months, my mom's sister-in-law, Kay, my mom's, not sister-in-law, half-sister died, and I went to the funeral, and I wore regular clothes, and I could hide it. Up until 6 months, I could hide it. Then nobody knew I was pregnant. I guess because I'd been so freaking huge when I got sober because of all those damn steroids,
Puffy.
Yeah, it didn't really look much different. But, yeah, so I hid it for a long time. but yeah, that's where I am now.
I love it. So how long have you been with this company that you're with now?
Started in, actually, I know it was October 13th of 2018. And so now I've been there, what's that, 5 years now?
Do you ever have days when a drink looks pretty appetizing, or are you pretty set that's
Daniel and I have opinions on how people answer this kind of question.
Yeah, are you set in your ways that, you know what, that's never ever going to be a solution ever again?
So I have to be careful because I can kind of see both. So I always say, you know, like I'm never going back to that. But then I have to say, I have to check myself, and I have to be like, you know what, like there is nothing that can happen today that's going to make me drink.
Right.
Because I think that if we say we're never going to do it again, then that's almost like allowing our addiction to hear, you know what I mean? Like allowing the devil to hear, like, oh, she thinks she's got it under control. Watch what I can do. So I'm very careful when I say never again.
I never say never. Never.
Yeah, never.
And all we have today, and this is one of the things that I love about 12 Steps, is all we have is today. We got 24 hours. That's it.
Yeah.
If you can stay sober for 24 hours, tomorrow we'll do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm pretty confident that I'm never going to use for at least the rest of this day. I got to
exactly. You had me worried there for a second.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, tomorrow is a whole different thing, but tomorrow will take care of itself. You know, we don't have to worry about that. You know, I think for me, you know, I always say when people ask me like what your recovery is, I like AA. I love AA. I choose not to go to AA meetings because I feel everybody's different. I always say that Jesus is my recovery. I'm involved in church. I stay focused in there. And it's like somebody told me once, you know, of course in AA they say your higher power. You know, I would hope that you would make God your higher power, because that's the only thing that's going to stay constant. I mean, like,
right. I was pretty close-minded when I for someone that got sober with faith-based and God only, I tried that route and it didn't work for me.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So for people that are ready to quit, whatever program they're in is going to work with them.
Absolutely.
Like for me, I wasn't ready when I just tried God only and Celebrate Recovery and all that stuff. It didn't work for me because I wasn't ready.
Right.
For Drew, AA didn't work perfectly because he wasn't ready. He was ready when he went to a faith-based program.
Right.
So there's exactly 1,763,422 different paths to recovery. Right. Each and every one of those ways is good if it works for you. So I've learned in the past, couple of years that I need to cut that judgment of, well, you don't go to AA, like how are you sober if you don't, like no, like that's not right.
As long as you're actively working your recovery.
If what you're doing
is working, then
is working and you're happy and not depressed, obviously even in sobriety, I can be depressed from time to time. Like it's just something like, you're not going to be perfectly happy at all times. Like, no, the hard depressive times make you appreciate or help you appreciate the times when things are relatively easy and going smoothly. Like the difficult times are absolutely important for me in my life to build character, to build discipline, and in order to be, prepared for whatever is going to happen in the future. If tomorrow is easy, great. If tomorrow is hell and it's a madhouse, you know what? I'm prepared for that because I've stuck with it. I'm disciplined. But ultimately, the main point of this is I'm so happy that the God path and the faith-based work, for you and for Drew and for the millions of other people. It didn't work for me because I wasn't ready at the time.
Yes.
Had I been ready when I was in, going through Celebrate Recovery when I was younger, I would have gotten it. And that would be my path. But so
it's different for everybody. And I will say, I think that everybody needs to follow the 12 steps of AA in your life. I don't care if you're sober, if you're not sober. I mean, you should practice.
It's an appropriate outline.
Yeah. And even the Bible that I have is a recovery Bible. And it's,
I have one of those.
Do you have? It's really cool because it'll take. Have you ever seen it? It'll take the steps.
I don't know if I've seen yours, but
it'll break it down like like step 2, and then it'll break it down and all that kind of stuff. But I just think as long as it's working, it's like you said, and
Right.
and I do like AA. I've chosen a different path, and that's what I like. And I think a lot of it's also what I was used to when I was living in Mobile. That's what we did. We didn't do AA. We did faith-based, so it was a kind of stick to what you know.
Right.
And I thought y'all had 12-step meetings at the Home of Grace.
We did at the Home of Grace. We didn't at Pasco.
Okay.
So when we were at Pasco, we didn't go to meetings. I mean, we could have, like, as we had gotten, when we got to like choose what we wanted to do, but I just went to church. That's what I did.
Praise it.
Praise it.
There were no 12-step meetings at the City of Refuge.
No.
Really?
No.
I mean, that's okay. Like, AA is not for everyone. AA is not the solution for everyone. I love it. I go every morning, I hop on a Zoom meeting in Dallas. That's where my people are. I tried the church thing, and for me, church, when I was really, really struggling, especially like with meth, I certainly didn't feel like I could go into a small group and say, "Hey, guys,
like
I love you all." But
been rolling that pickle.
yeah,
Rolling
I've
that
been
pickle.
smoking methamphetamine out of a meth pipe, and I don't feel good about it. They would,
Okay.
gosh, I don't. Pine Lake be like, "Yo, bro, you need to go out."
We don't have that kind of ministry.
And the point is, like, when I go into AA, if I were to have to, if I was struggling with something, say, guys,
Like, I got high yesterday.
I got high
need
yesterday.
help.
I need some help. They're gonna be like, "All right, let me come and give you a hug."
Right.
Like, that's what they're gonna
and
do.
that should, and I will say, unfortunately, we live in a world that the church isn't like that, and that they should be. I mean, everybody's broken that goes to church, and everybody, just like you get in an AA meeting, you should get that when you walk into a church. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of places, I will say, especially in Jackson, that you can find something like that.
Right.
I honestly think that if you were to walk into my church in Ocean Springs and tell somebody that, they would welcome you with open arms and they would give you a
Yeah,
hug.
and that's not to say that was my experience.
Well, yeah,
you know what I mean?
I'm
Like,
saying, yeah,
with
yeah.
one church,
Yeah.
and it wasn't Pine Lake. That's not. That was just an example that I was throwing out there.
No, but that would happen if you went there.
No, I don't know about that. But yeah, it's church is, if I didn't have the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, I would absolutely need to find that somewhere.
And that's what
church
it is, we're
Well,
all
as long as you
fellowship.
stay plugged in, I think you can have the exact same boxes checked. You can have a sense of community, you can have a sense of accountability, and you can have a mentor of sorts.
right.
Yeah.
And that is really the format for how AA works.
Right, and
a
that-
sense of community and purpose,
Right.
accountability,
The main
and somebody
difference,
to hold your hand.
yeah, the opposite of addiction
Yeah.
is
We didn't have accountability.
connection,
And
right?
I will say the cool thing about it, the cool thing about, Kimberly and Drew and I all being sober is we do hold each other accountable, like just recently we all quit vaping and it was tough.
I really wanted to vape this morning. My brother was blowing big fat clouds. It smelled
But
so
you did.
good.
But, that's another thing, honestly, I will say that's the hardest thing I've had to do since getting sober. What about for you?
I don't know. I mean, it wasn't easy, but
I would say that or you taking the bar probably.
yeah, maybe some of that.
a bar. I feel like taking the bar might be slightly higher on the list.
But, I will say that we definitely have a different level of accountability, within our family. For me, accountability, I'm an open book. Like if people that I meet for work or whatever, in my industry, it's insurance, people go, they drink, that's what they do, when you go on conventions and stuff like that. Everybody that I work with knows that I'm sober. And that's because that gives me that extra level of accountability. It's not, oh, hey, let's go get drunk, or have a drink or whatever. I know that if I'm honest up front, then that I'm setting myself up for success, because a lot of times as addicts, that hiding
Living in the
everything.
shadows.
Yeah, and
Right.
if you don't,
Still leaving that door creaked open
Yeah.
just a little bit to,
yeah,
yeah.
Well, lying a little is lying a lot.
yeah,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lie is still a lie, yeah. But I think for me, the biggest thing about working my recovery is I know that I have a heart to help other broken women. I still go back to the place in Mobile where I went, where I lived. I still go back as often as I can to talk to the women there. Like, this has been awesome. This is fun.
That's what it's all about, right?
Just
God has given it to you free of charge.
Yeah, and give
now
it
it's
back.
our goal and our duty to give it back.
And that's not to say, I have people that are placed in my life every day that maybe I can just give them a ray of hope and help, and it might not be them. It could be, somebody that they know. So, I mean,
Right.
I think that's another thing. You just have to be, once you've gotten sober and all that crap is gone and your life is good, I mean, like, I raise a 3.5-year-old on my own, like, and I stay sober doing it. Like,
And he has a lot of energy.
like he's like, Kimberly jokes and she said, God knows I couldn't have a kid like Blake because I would have relapsed. Like,
he really, like, hyperbole aside, he's wide open.
He's wide open. He's either awake or he's asleep.
See, I mean, he seemed like a reasonable child at trick or treating on Halloween. He didn't seem like he was.
He's calmed down a little bit.
He has calmed down some, but I think that was also. He had no
Y'all give him
tranquilizer.
some tranquilizers.
No, this was walking
IV
around
drip of
outside.
Benadryl.
He went with his actually trick or treating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. When I was, where was I? I was
When you were
Iowa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
He's calmed down.
he has calmed down
No,
some.
he's a good.
But
He's a good kid.
Like,
he is a
I
great
mean,
kid.
for the first year of his life, he cried the whole time. He didn't sleep. I mean, it has not been easy. I will say that
That is true. He cried a lot.
yeah, like it wasn't easy. He wasn't an easy baby. He wasn't the easiest 2-year-old. He, like, you can tell Thomas, like, don't touch that. He's not going to touch it, and he won't ever go back to it. If you tell Blake not to touch something, he's going to touch it.
Well, let's not pretend Thomas minds really well these days.
Well, these days.
He's been wilding out
Yeah.
lately.
It's weird, actually. Thomas has been going through a phase, and Blake's actually been sweet. So my kid looks calm right now. I'll take it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Thomas is unreasonable lately.
No, they were both totally cool at Halloween. Totally cool. Well, we're at
We
57
really
now.
have it goes by quick, doesn't it?
Do you want to hop on your 2 questions? I'm gonna hop over here to the
Yes, you ready? These
Yeah.
are my favorite 2 questions.
All right.
Now, I know you said this was off limits, but no, I'm kidding. Okay. What do you do poorly in your recovery?
What do I do poorly?
Mm-hmm.
These are hard.
I love the last 2 people I've asked this to. You would have thought, I was like, how do you map the pig genome or something? They're just stunned. And I've got a long list of stuff I know I'm not doing right.
Well, I mean, I think you can definitely find. Can you hear me?
There you go.
Can you hear me now? I think I mean, of course, I'm not perfect. I don't do anything right. I'm just a big old ball of chaos, and somehow it works out. But I would say, for me, one thing I wish I could do better is, like, for me, like, time management. I mean, like, it's in my recovery, because it's like I set out things to do, whether it's, spend time with God or go to church or whatever. And it's like, sometimes other things just get in the way before my recovery does. I mean, I think that's also, like, part of my place in life right now. I mean, being a mom is all I do. I don't ever get to turn that off. So it's kind of like I don't have much of a choice. But I would say that would probably be my thing.
Okay, time management. What do you do well in your recovery?
I would say that I mean, I'm honest. And I give it away. They say, when you have it, give it away. As often as I can, I try to use it to help somebody.
What a good answer. Good for you.
Thank you.
I like it. Drew, was there anything else that you'd like to add to today's episode number 62?
Number 62 is in the books. I'm done.
Awesome. Elizabeth, thank you so much for
Thank
coming.
y'all.
You're a rock star. You're
You did
awesome. Keep it up. Keep going. Thank you, ladies
Next time
and gentlemen.
when you come back, we'll see how you're doing on your time management.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll check back in
We'll
with
check
you.
in. Okay.
Check in.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you guys
We're out.
next week with Brad Garway and crew.
In company.
All right. We'll see you later.